On and on. I put a Facebook tribute out to Rich, and the picture that I chose, if anyone saw it, was a picture of one of the mud runs that we did. I chose that picture for a reason. Rich and I did several races together with coworkers. Mary Ellen, who's standing over here. The one that I'll never forget, if I can get through the story, is the Philadelphia Tough Mudder we did together. There was a description on the internet before we even thought about doing this race that called it 11 miles of pure suck. And if you know Rich, you know it took him about 1 hour to convince Mary Ellen and I that we had to do this race. And if you also know Rich, you know that he wouldn't bother to train 1 second for this race. And it was a hot day, and the race was 11 miles with 22 obstacles. And Mary Ellen and I, between each obstacle, would start to run. And Rich would start screaming obscenities at us from behind and convincing other people in the race to yell at us that we were abandoning him. And we'd yell back. If you would have trained, you could have kept up with us. And eventually we would slow down and Rich would pick up the pace, and that was all fine and dandy. But then came the obstacles. And the thing about Rich, if you know Rich, he would not even think about starting any of those 22 obstacles until he was sure that Mary Ellen and I would get through. Oftentimes he allowed us to use him as a human ladder to climb over obstacles. And I remember towards the end of that race, 4.5 hours of hell. And we got to one of those 12, 14-foot high warp walls. And Mary Ellen and I were 50 years old, and we're pretty much dead. And we looked at each other and said, we're not going to make it. And Rich turned to us, and he said, yes, you are. He turned and he ran. The Son of God made it up that wall with no help from anybody. He proceeded to lay down, draped his arms down that wall, and called to Mary Ellen and I and said, let's go. And he pulled us each over that wall, and we finished that race together. And that's a description of Rich in life. Between those obstacles, he could argue you to death, he could drive you nuts. But if you encountered an obstacle in your life, I guarantee everyone in this room has a story. He would be there. He would be there to help you through that obstacle, he'd pull you through. And that's who he was, and that's the memory that I'm going to carry with me. That's a quality in a friend that's rare to find, and that's what I found in Rich, and that's why I'll never forget him.